Yes, Jan.
When you do that on my math.com, is the first number always the base number and the second number is the exponent?
That's correct. Yes, in this case, so like my power is sort of like a fake power because it's just using the real power, right? And this power will always take the first argument is the number, and then the second, the exponent, yes. I think you call this the base, no? Mm-hmm. So let's see if that still works. Cool. So note here, so I only can do this. So this is like syntactic sugar because when JavaScript is coming here, it sees these properties and it sees that we're not assigning a value explicitly and just says, oh, I know that you just want me to look up if there is anything defined with the same name and save it under this property name. This only works because the names that I'm using here are the same as the names of my functions. If I try to do sum1, then this sum here, when JavaScript comes here, it will check if there's anything called sum. Is there anything called sum? No. And let's see if it breaks or it keeps going. A reference error. Sum is not defined. On my math line 10. Right, but because it arrives here, it's trying to look for a variable or anything called sum, and it cannot find it to be saved into a variable, into a property called sum too. So this is just a shorthand. When you want to export the stuff that you had. So in here, since this is just, or actually before we see anything else, questions or comments to this part? Yes?
Can you only export functions, or can you export information like arrays or objects or whatever?
That's a great question. Let's try that here. Let's do something like my magic number. I'm going to pick the number of pi, which is 3, 14, something, 16. And then put that number into your exports. And then console log this number from within the using modules.js file. Can you console log, so that's the question, can you console log this number from within the using modules.js file? Would I be able to do console log my math dot my magic number? Well, I have to export it here. Thumbs up if you were able to see it. Thumbs down if you need more time. Okay. A few more seconds. Those of you that saw the number now, change the number to something else, to any other value that you want. Maybe a boolean, an array, an object. No. What's something else? String. Cool. Thumbs up if you get that other thing to console log from within using modules.js. Did it matter what kind of thing you were putting on? If you put an object versus a Boolean. So the answer to Douglas' question is no. You can't export. You can't export anything. Anything that can be a value you can export. Not only functions. That was a great question. Other questions or comments? Again, the motivation behind this is so you can break your apps into smaller chunks, into modules that you can then assemble. You'll find that you'll probably start doing same operations in different projects. You'll want to use those on separate projects, and you'll want to separate them to a file so that you can reuse them. Cool. So far we have talked about a build like assert. This we call a local module that we created. Right? We call a local module because it's this module is coming from within this folder that I'm currently in. This folder, right? So it's called we call mymath.js is a local module that is coming from my folder, right? You cannot use this module. Well, you cannot use my copy, right? Because it's local. It only exists on my computer. You're doing it because, well, you wrote your own copy, right? So actually, let's take 2 minutes to talk to whoever is near you about the differences between built-in module versus a local module. Try to come up with maybe other examples of these two. Talk to whoever is near you about the differences. Okay, anything that surfaced from that discussion? Let's summarize. Yes, Karen?
Saying it's not like Steam game engine, you can buy a game, let's say for example, Unsourced Online, that will be considered a vanilla copy, but then there's a community of people who build extra software because of the warranties and make it prettier. So you can download their work and add it to your game.
Cool. Yep, that's a good example. Any other? I think I was seeing a hand around here. Neil?
Yes, like Android. There's like core Google created Android, but then like Samsung and whatever created like they modify by adding their own code to it.
Yeah. And you guys are talking about something which we're actually going to be seeing next, which is how to like publish that so that other people can use it. We're not going to be talking about how to publish it itself. We're going to be talking about how to use a modules that somebody else published. Like right now, if I want you to use my module, I'll have to like send you the file on Slack, something like that. Right? And yeah, so built-in modules are part of Node or the browser, right? They are part of that environment. And local modules are modules that we create. So one, like the built-in module was some code that somebody else wrote that made available for us to use. The local modules are the ones that we write. When we're dealing with built-in modules, the only thing that we need to do is require them, because whoever created that module already said module.export somewhere in their code. But when we're dealing with local modules, modules that we create, because we are both. So this is another thing. Like in a module that is built in, we are the users of that module. We're the consumers, right? In a local module that we create, we're both the author and the consumer of that, right? And then because of that, we need to explicitly export, not only import. Sure?
You see the module.exports, right? Is it better to use the colons or just the name itself? What's a better practice?
There's some style guides that say if what you're exporting will have the same name as if the name of the export is the same as the thing you're exporting, you should use the shorthand. You should use this shorthand. Mm-hmm. For JavaScript, it's actually just the it's because like when you do it, HTTPS. I could do this like with assert, if I import assert, but in here, I'm not importing Axios, and Axios is not part of Node. So one, we should see it break. It breaks saying reference error, Axios is not defined, even if we try to require it. Axios equal require Axios. Remember that with built-in methods, we can specify just with built-in modules, we can specify the name. And here, we'll need to specify like a path to Axios. We don't have a file called Axios, but let's just try this just to see it. Node using modules says it cannot find module Axios. So even if we try to import it like this, Axios is nowhere to be found because it's not part of Node. It's not a built-in module, and it's not a module that we wrote. Right? It's not a local module. So this kind of module is known as a third-party module. Somebody else wrote this. They are not part of the Node developers. They're like their own organization or like their own just single individuals. But they publish this package for us to use. So for us to use this package, what we need to do is download it or install it. And once we have that, once we have a copy of the package, then we can use it. So again, third party will be something that is not built in and that we didn't create. It's not a local module, and we're gonna see. So then, how is it that I can get a copy of Axios so that I can use it? How did we do it with when we briefly saw it on the browser? How was it that we were able to use Axios? A script tag in the head, and if you look at that URL, it was a URL to some server that had Axios, right? And what that will do is just download that file for the other scripts to use. Right? What we're gonna do is the same thing, but for Node. And it's just like we don't have to use the script tag, well, because Node doesn't understand HTML. But so let's try to do that. So there is that's where like NPM really kicks in. So NPM stands for the Node Package Manager. Let's do NPM. NPM is a package manager for Node.js packages or modules, if you like. npmjs.com hosts thousands of free packages to download and use. The NPM program is installed on your computer when you install Node. So NPM is a package manager. So what do you think, if we put this in like an analogy, what would be a package manager? Or also the manager manages packages, but yeah.
I guess you could say it's a librarian and supplies the books if you require them.
That's correct, yeah. It's like a librarian at a library that knows where the books are stored and how to get them, how to put them back. Yeah, I think that's a great example. I was trying to see like package manager. I was thinking maybe the person like the postal service person, but they're delivering the packages, and that's a little bit more. They're delivering they know where a package is, and they know how to get to your house. They have different packages that they carry that go to different places. But yeah, I think that the librarian example is pretty good. So yeah, that's basically it. So we want to use a package manager because it turns out that as our applications keep growing, we don't want to. We want to keep our code organized, right? But that's the main reason is because you will be using code that somebody else wrote. The truth is, like, you will very rarely write a JavaScript application from scratch, because well, it will be a lot of work, and other people have already done pieces of that work that you need to do, and they package that into a Node module for you to use so that you don't have to do the job again. Like one example of that is Axios, right? So we don't have to use fetch and XML HTTP request. Somebody else package Axios so that for us it's easier to just do Axios.get, right? And you will be using both the number of packages, the number of third-party packages that you will be using in your projects will vary. I think I could look at, let's see, one of my projects. This was my capstone project. Let's see how many I use. Game on. Oh. Kind of find it. CD code game on. So here, let's do backend. That JSON. So here, these are These here are all the packages that I'm using. So these are third-party packages that somebody else wrote that I'm using on my application to work. We're going to actually learn how to do, we're going to be using this package Express. In this unit, we're going to be using Passport, PG Promise, Supervisor, Breakcrypt. So if I had to write all this code that's providing all these packages, I would probably still be coding. Because these are, in these packages, I wonder if you could do the math of how many lines of code, but this could be thousands, if not, I think like thousands of lines of code in all these packages that somebody else wrote. They were nice enough to make them available for other people to use, right? And then, so we use NPM, the package manager, to know what packages we're using, to keep track of what version we're using. So, for instance, here, I'm using a package called Express version 4.16. The package manager is the one that is keeping track of what version of the package I'm using, and it knows what version to install. So note here that this is a JSON file. You can see it here. This is a special JSON file that we will be using a lot. It's called a package JSON. This package JSON file keeps track of what is known as you're using third-party modules, then your code becomes dependent on those modules, right? If somebody, let's say, for some reason Express went away, then my code wouldn't work. It's very rare that modules go away, but somebody will probably adopt it and maybe change their name, but that'll be it. Yes, sorry.
Where does the property, JSON, where does it live?
Wait, but what do you mean? Like, do you mean the content of the JSON?
No. How do we get the JSON function? It's on the built-in or the local? No, it's on third party. It's a third party.
So I think if I understood you correctly, so we will have to create this file. Is this like, are you asking like, where is this file coming from?
No. Like just the ability of decoding JSON into objects.
That's a good question. Now I see it. So what Sergio is asking is like, how is it that you could do JSON that parse, for instance? Yeah. Like, how is it that we could call this function? Where is this JSON coming from, right? So I don't know the exact answer. I know that this is coming in, I don't know if it's a module. I don't know if it's a module in the sense that we're talking about here. I have the sense that it's a module. It is just like console, so you remember when we saw...
It's like a different type of module because it's not installed. You have to go online. No? It's like something like that.
That's correct. So yes, this is we don't have to install it, right? It comes with it. So that means if we just based on that means that it's a built-in module.
But it's, according to what the little I read, it's not built-in. It's like you go online and there's a machine, a server,
that will do it.
That translates and sends it back to you.
No, I don't think that's true because even if I unplug from the internet, I could still do JSON.
It still works.
So let's look at this. So JSON. So here's the thing. So there's some modules that are globally available, so that you don't have to require them. One such module is console. You don't have to. They require console to do console log. Right? And in fact, I was reading that here. If we go to the documentation of Node.js, go to the API, and we look for console, so there's a module called console. This console, as we see, there is like console log is in here, and here it says, where does it? Yeah, here. Require. here. A global console instance configured to write to blah, blah, blah. The global console can be used without calling required. So this is another thing, like where they were making Node and they saw, oh, it's very common to use console. It will be really tough to have to require console every time you want to use it. Right? Let's just make it globally available since it's so common. So then you can just do console without having to require it. Now I want to see if in here, in this documentation, we have JSON anywhere. We just have this. So there is no sort of like built-in JSON. But I think it must be on, you know what, let's do JSON global JavaScript comes from. JSON JavaScript, let's try to see this. Oh, let's do JSON global Node.js. Oh, global objects. So here, so turns out that in the documentation it's just grouped into something called global objects, globals. And here we can see JSON should be here. Oh no, it's not here. I should have just clicked this link.
Don't worry.
JSON. Yeah, but it's definitely, so it's not a local module. It's not a local module. It's not a module that we need to import, that we need to require. It is built in somehow. We'll need to see, yeah, the details of that. Mm-hmm. But that's a good question, and it has to come from somewhere. You know, it's not magic. So, that's correct. So, okay, so let's learn how to use the package manager to import third-party modules. So, what I'm going to, for us to use third-party modules, as I said, we'll need to download them somehow, and that's what we're gonna see next. So here, so I showed you this package JSON. So we have to create this file. We have to create a file called package.json, right? We'll just call a command that will create it for us, but we'll have to do it. So I'm gonna go back, cd, no, where was I? I'm in Node and modules. Unit 3, Node and event loop, no. NPM and Node. So here I have these two files, right? I don't have a package.json file. And I want to create a package.json file so that I keep track of what third-party modules I'm using, so that I, the human, don't have to remember it, right? Imagine if you had to remember, oh, I'm using Axios here, I'm using Express there, right? You don't want to have to remember. This is another, going back to that thing that you want the computer to do stuff for you. You want the computer to remember stuff. So for initializing a package JSON, or even before we go into that, so you see how we have the node command or the node program, and here we can type any JavaScript like console.log hello, right? So it turns out that with Node, when you install Node, you also got a program called NPM. So you could do NPM. Let's do NPM -v to print the version number that we have. So I have npm 6.9.0. Don't worry if you have a different version. But is everyone able to see the version? Because if you're not able to see it, then that means that you don't have npm installed. And then you won't be able to use it. So npm has a, remember that if you want to find more documentation, you could do, I think, man npm. Oh, there is no manual entry for that. Then you will have to look up the documentation online. But there is one command called npm init. Similar to, where else have we seen init? In Git. And why do we do git init? To initialize a Git project, right? Here the same. Here we're initializing an NPM project. So do that and then hit enter. And then read what it says. Yes. A little bit louder. I couldn't listen to the last part. Oh, really? Oh, so if it showed you the man page, you'll need to hit Q to exit from there, and then you can do npm init. Did everyone all see like the manual for npm? Here's the manual. Oh, but that's the version. But I mean the manual page. Okay. Yeah, I don't really know why some people get the manual page and some don't. But so here, the npm init is a command that will walk us through how to create a package JSON. And then it asks you some questions like, what is the name of the package? Or what is the name of the app? So here I'm just gonna hit enter on all of them. So package name, it says it's gonna pick the same as the folder name. That's okay. Then like what version do I want to start on? Version 1. Description, this is if I wanna, I'm gonna call it like my first app using NPM Modules. Hit enter, then it says like entry point. Oh, this we can skip this for now. You can leave it like default. You may be seeing a different file name, entry point. That's okay. Hit enter. Test command. Hit enter. Git repository. Enter. Keywords. Author. You can specify an author or a license, and then it's asking you, is this okay? Is this sort of template package JSON okay? And I'm gonna say okay. So you hit enter. Now if you inspect, or if you do ls to list the content of the folder, you now see that you have a package JSON. I could use the cat command just to print it, to see the content. And I see the content of that file. So this is, I initialize an NPM project. And the main reason why we want to do this is because we want to keep track of what packages we have installed for this project and not have to remember ourselves. Peter?
What is the cat do?
Which one?
Cat. It says cat.
Oh. Cat just prints out the content of a file.
So it's like console, if you were like console login and so.
Yeah, you can think of it like the console log, but for console logging an entire file. It starts for concatenate. That's where this name came from. Cat is one of the first programs that was like made in. Cool. So everyone was able to see the package JSON. like if you go on VS Code and on the left bar here, now we see the package JSON. And it has the same content that we were seeing, right? Cool, so we can see here that we don't have a dependency property as we saw in the project that I was showing you. But then now let's do actually the fun stuff, which is install actually a module. Download and install a module. So it turns out, so these modules are gonna come from the internet, right? And there is sort of a, what do you call it? So there's this website where modules come from called npmjs.com. It says build amazing things, essential JavaScript development tools that help you go to market faster and build powerful applications using modern open source software. I want to see if there's something where it says like about us or about documentation about NPM, maybe here. So NPM is lots of things. NPM is a package manager, so that is like the program NPM that you type in your terminal. It was created in 2009 with Node. And the NPM Registry is a public collection of packages. This website, npmjs.com, is a public collection of packages of open source code for Node.js. And then there is a company, NPM Inc. But this is where Axios comes from. It comes from this public collection of packages. So in here you can even search Axios, and then Axios comes up here. And this is the Axios package. You can see how many downloads it has, weekly downloads. So almost 5 million downloads a week. Axios is used by a lot of developers. Imagine 4 million a week. It tells you where Axios runs. It runs on all the major browsers. It says basic description, as well as when was the last published, 4 months ago, and the GitHub repo where it comes from. The GitHub repo where it came from. So you could, if you create a module, a local module, and you see that it's useful, and you also see that it's not only useful for you, but it might be useful for other people, you could put it on this public collection of packages, npmjs.com, and have it available for any other developer that want to use your package. This is what all these people have done. They just put it in here. I wanted to show you, Jar, do you remember the name of the package from Mateo? Yeah. I think it's React Express something. Maybe generator. No, this is not him. So what Mateo did was he combined these two packages into one, and it turns out that people use it. So let's see.
It's called the
React-Express. Yeah, so this is his. So he created this package called Create React Express App. This is two things that we're going to learn, React and Express. He combined them and 16 weekly downloads. People is using his package. You can see he last published it 7 months ago. You can go to the repo.
I get the license from MIT.
Say that again?
I get the MIT license.
Oh, that is you just decide to use it. It's not granted by an authority. You just decide to release your code under this license. Yeah. So he created this because he saw that he was doing a lot of Express and React together. He decided to combine them and publish it so other people can use it. And you can do this too. If you find that you're doing a lot of stuff, the same stuff a lot of times, you can just package that and publish it for other people to use. So, okay, so going back to that, so we can again download packages from here. Just going back to Axios, let's actually do Axios. So for downloading a package from here, what you need to do is first have done npm init and have a package JSON. And the next thing that you will do is, I want to have this open here. I'm going to close this. Note here two things. So I'm on my folder. I have the package JSON. Now I want to download and install Axios. For doing that, you are going to do npm install Axios. And then I'm not going to hit enter yet. But here, if you have your package JSON open on the right side, you will see that something is going to change here. So now let's hit enter. Then this thing starts to go on, like it's downloading it. And it took 3.1 seconds. It found 0 vulnerabilities. And now if you go to your package JSON, now you see that you have a new property called dependencies, and Axios is listed there. Was everyone able to see this? Good? So now my project, I'm not using Axios yet, but once I start to use Axios, then my project becomes dependent on Axios. That's why this package or this module then is known as a dependency, because my code is depending on this to work. So let's try our first one. Let's go on. I'm gonna create another file called create this file called getmovies.js. And here, what is the first thing that we want to do when we want to use a module? Require it or import it. So I'm going to save that to a variable called Axios. I'm going to say equal require Axios. And then here I'm going to say Axios.get. I know about the Axios.get because I read the Axios documentation, and you should too. I'm going to use the Ghibli API, so I'm going to go back here. I'm going to get the same movies that we got from the Unit 2 assessment, but now I'm going to get them from Node instead of from the browser. Where is the endpoint? Here. Use this URL, paste that in here. So I have Axios.get. I'm going to do that then. Let's do this. Rest, or actually data. And I'm going to do console log data. So I'm not using await, I'm using that then to attach a callback, this callback to the promise. Then let's run our code by saying node space get movies.js. I require Axios, which is a third-party module somebody else wrote, downloaded it from npmjs.com with npm install Axios. Now I'm using Axios in my code in my getmovies.js. Now I'm going to hit enter to execute this code, takes some time, but after that, I get, what do I get?
Data.
The data, right? What is this data representing? Oh, actually, I get more than that. I get the request too. There is some stuff that I don't see here. So this is more like response, and to do response.data. What I was console logging was actually the response. I'm only interested in the data property of the response that has actually all the movies. And then we got all the movies that we were getting with Fetch or with Axios for the Unit 2 assessment. Thanks to Axios, thanks to the Axios developers. Was everyone able to see the movies being console logged? So let's do console log response.data. Since we know that response.data, let's do this a little bit more organized. We know that response.data is the movies. So I'm going to create a function here called let movies or films equal response.data. And then I can just do, since we know that films is an array, films.length. Oops. Films. We see that now when I execute node get movies.js, we saw that we have an array of 20 movies. And then this is an array, then you can do anything with it. Let's do films that for each, let's print the name of every movie. For each film, console log film .title. Let's remove this. Going back to the array methods. For each film, I want to console log the film.title. And we run, and we see basically what we will put on our select box, right, as the options. Thoughts or questions? Owen?
So you're posting about it. I have like a package logs.json file. Node Modules file.
That's good. That's good. Let's look at that. So Owen noticed that when he does ls description, it says like Axios, the version, where it came from, its integrity. This is sort of related to what we were seeing last week with Ben, like the hashing functions. This is like, they're using a hashing function to check or to basically turn on this package into this random string. And then if anything changes within the package, then this random string will not be the same, and you will know that something was changed, but that's not of much use for us. You're not going to be looking at the package log JSON that much. The main file will be the package JSON file, where once you're importing modules from third-party sources, they will be listed here as dependencies. Where did that module go? It went into a folder called node_modules. This folder was created automatically, and this is standard. This is where, when you do, so here, going back to this, when you do require, what JavaScript will do is going to look to see if the module is a built-in module, right? If it's not a built-in module, because it couldn't find it within Node, then it's going to look into the folder called Node Modules. It looks in there, it sees Axios, it imports Axios. Other questions, comments, concerns? Owen?
So if you use like Access Display, you always have to do like NPM Axios, like download it at the top?
No, so you will only need to download it once per project, once per app. You don't have to install it every time I want to use it. Yeah, you install it once per project. So if you take a look at most repositories that you'll be looking at, and your own now will start to have something called package JSON. This is where it keeps track of all the dependencies of this package. So he only has one dependency, or that means that then this probably has all the other dependencies. You can also see here, Axios, if we go back to the documentation, you can see these things here at the top. One is 2 dependencies. This means that Axios, people who wrote Axios, used 2 other packages that they didn't write themselves. Somebody else wrote for them. And we can click this and see what those 2 other packages are. Follow redirect and is buffer. If you paid attention when you did ls node modules to see the content of node modules, you see that these 2 are also in here. Follow redirect and is buffer. These are dependencies not to our project directly. They're dependencies to Axios. But since our project, this tiny app that we wrote, depends on Axios, indirectly, our app depends on these 2 too. And look at this other one, this other number, 24,467. This is the number of packages that are using Axios as a dependency. Even so, if this project that I just created with npm init, if I publish this project on npm, then this number will go up by 1, because then now my project is also depending on Axios. But these are only the published packages that are depending on Axios. You may not publish it if you don't want to. So let's see, any other final questions or comments? I think we covered everything. Yes?
So can you open those different things, like those different files?
Yes, I can. We can do open. Let's do like open the period, just sort of to see it in here. So this is my folder, right, in the Finder, and I can go to Node Modules. Inside of Modules, we see the same folder, and I can see Axios, and this is what Axios is composed of. All these files, it has a README, has a package JSON itself, has an index.js. If I'm interested in that, I can look at. This has only one file, but it's importing another module from here. If I go there, hopefully, we're gonna see a more meaty file. This is Axios. Like right here, we're looking at the word that we were talking about yesterday, the source code of Axios. We imported Axios. So we are running out of time. Try these 2 on your own. So there is 2. This other package is one called Chalk. I think some of you already used this one for the Handman game. Chalk is a package that will let you color text on your terminal. Figlet, I don't even know. Oh, yeah, I guess you can write stuff. You can write hello world in this fashion. That's cool. So I'm gonna let you see how to. Again, the documentation is your best friend. You'll learn how to use them. So read that. For now, any departing questions before we do the exit ticket? Neil? Oh, so Vanilla is talking about, so you can install a project, you can install a package for your project, and that's going to go inside your Node Modules folder right inside of your project. And we have the possibility to also install a package globally, and that package will be just available for any other package or any other project that wants to use it, and that will go onto your home directory. If you go, I think I have it here. If I do, I'm going back to my home. You can do ls or ls la. There is one folder here called npm packages. Sometimes I don't think it's this one actually, but it will go somewhere else in your home directory. Say that again? Yes, they will go into the same place. Cool. So let's get going on the exit ticket, and that'll be it for today. Have a good night, everyone.